I will say this for this channel. I love the discussion it starts. And when I did the redraft today, I didn't do it to be different and to be contrarian. And there are times where I'll talk about Erik Karlsson, this guy here right on this jersey, and people will think, well, Shannon's just trying to be contrarian. No. I love Erik Karlsson, I do. But his career's trending in the wrong direction right now, and hopefully during this pause he gets healthy. One thing with Erik Karlsson that I think has been off since 2017 is I don't think he's been at 100%. He went on that great run in 2017, where they got close to going to a Stanley Cup Finals. And it was quite the run that Ottawa went on. But since then, something has just seemed off with Carlson. And he's not quite at that level. Now, in the 2017 season, he was second for Norris voting. He was in 2016 as well. And there was plenty of people who didn't like him not winning the Norris those years and felt he should have won it. So in 2016, when Doughty won it, there were people who didn't like it. Now, he won the Norris in 2015 and he won it in 2012. So he's been first or second in Norris voting 4 times. Devil's Advocate says Norris Trophy goes to your best offensive defenseman, and if you're talking about best all-around defenseman, that will probably go to somebody else. And it's a debate that then gets into the weeds on advanced stats and all that. I don't want to do the advanced stats thing. I just want to look at just your basic stats and where they're at. And with ice time, Erik Karlsson, 25 minutes and 58 seconds on average in his career, plays a lot. And I think that's where the is he 100% healthy thing comes in. And I'm aware that if you ask him during any time of the season, he'll say, yep, I'm good. But tell me which player is going to say, man, my shoulder really hurts and my ankle's kind of, I don't know. It hurts. It hurts every day. Because then when they go out on the ice, somebody's going to go, oh, your shoulder hurts, and they'll drill it. There's a reason they only tell us upper body and lower body injuries. Now, in his career, he's played 736 games, 135 goals, 468 assists, 603 points. Offensively, nobody on the board can touch Erik Karlsson. So for points and for goals, nobody on the board can touch Carlson. But everybody on the board has at least 100 goals. The 2008 draft class was pretty darn solid. Not too bad when it came to defensemen. Now this season, Carlson, 56 games played, 6 goals, 34 assists, 40 points. This was before the pause. And he's playing a ton in San Jose as well, and it's a luxury to be able to throw Brent Burns on the ice one time and Erik Karlsson the next, and be able to cycle through these guys. The problem is, in the case of Carlson, it feels to me, and again, this is just a feeling I've had since that 2017 run, that he's playing hurt or something's affecting his mobility. Now, it's not unusual as a player gets older that their mobility starts to become more of an issue. A guy who may be a very fast skater, fleet of foot at 21 may not be that at 31. So it's understandable you're going to slow down a bit. But Carlson, who played on one leg in 2017, I've always had my doubts, and I've still seen that. So he was, I think, 15th in Norris voting last year. He really wasn't a factor when it came to the Norris voting. And I think part of it may very well be that he didn't fit in with the San Jose system, but now he's there for a very long time to come. Made the All-Star game 2011 and 2012, as well as 2016 through 2019. All those All-Star games, all those accolades, but Roman Josi. So Josi has a wonderful shelter in his place that Carlson never had. Josi has always played on very solid defensive units. Whether you had Shea Weber out there, whether you had Ryan Suter, whether you had Matthias Ekholm, who's underrated, Ryan Ellis, and so on and so forth, to the point where, we can just give up Seth Jones. We don't really need him, which is just insane. Or Sam Girard, we can give him up. We don't really need him. Nashville just churns out defensemen and defensemen and defensemen. And Roman Josi, as the years have gone on, and as other guys have moved along, people have started to realize how good he is. And he's pretty darn good. He really is. And I've been aware of this for years now, where I've been extolling the virtues of Roman Josi and his ability to play. Now, he does not have that explosive offense that Carlson has, but he's not a slouch offensively. 632 games played, 109 goals, 304 assists, 413 points. This season, at the pause, 69 games played, 16 goals, 49 assists, 65 points. Almost a point a game this year, and suddenly it's between he and John Carlson for the Norris. The Norris is very often held up between the best offensive defensemen, and it drives me as insane as it drives anybody else. because it doesn't tell you who the best all-around defenseman is necessarily. It just tells you who's having a really good year. 24 minutes and 49 seconds on average throughout his career. So it's about a minute less than Karlsson. I will say this for Josi. It definitely helps to have other defensemen around who are able to make sure that other teams aren't keying on you. And Karlsson didn't have that a lot in Ottawa, where he had to kind of drag them along. But this year, I feel, has finally revealed to the world how good Josi is, something I've known for a long time. When a forward makes a mistake, it's noticeable. When a defenseman makes a mistake, everybody calls for their head on a plate. This is kind of watch any playoff game, and at the end of the night, somebody's going to be swearing, probably at the defenseman. They might be yelling at the goaltender who allowed the goal as well, but it may very well be the defenseman. Josi just doesn't make mistakes. He has a very mistake-free game. And it's just crazy to watch him out there and realize just how good he is. Now, in 2015 and 2016, he was 5th in Norris voting. In 2018 and 2019, he's 7th in Norris voting. I believe that if we had the Norris Trophy for the best offensive defenseman, and then we had a Langway Trophy for best defensive defenseman, this guy would have hardware. He is fantastic defensively. Jacob Slavin in Carolina might be the best complete defensive defenseman in the league. I know I'm going out on a limb saying it, but I mean that. Where these guys are just really, really solid. Yet they may not run a power play like some of the other guys on the board, but, I think we need to have a separate discussion about that. It's sort of like, just imagine if the Selke Trophy didn't exist. Bergeron didn't have any hardware. You can't argue Bergeron ahead of a guy like Connor McDavid or a guy like Sidney Crosby. It'd be foolish to make that argument. And I think with defensemen, we sometimes do that as well, where you have an excellent defenseman who's now having a really good year offensively, and suddenly, now we'll think about giving him the Norris Trophy. Now look at all the goals he's putting up. Yeah, what about all the other years where he was still a fantastic defenseman? So that's my point with Josi, and he's trending in the right direction. He's an All-Star in 2016, 2019, and 2020. So he is trending in that direction where he is becoming the guy, and he's showing he probably could have been the guy sooner. Now, Drew Doughty takes a lot of flack. He's played more games than anybody else on this board and more minutes. 919 games, 117 goals, 385 assists, 502 points. His offense is better than people give him credit for as well. 67 games played this year, 7 goals, 28 assists, 35 points. 26 minutes and 15 seconds in ice time. Now, he's won a couple of Stanley Cups as well, which will definitely increase his visibility. Norris Trophy in 2016. He was 2nd in Norris voting in 2018. And 2010, he was 3rd in Norris voting. So, if you're just going by voting on the Norris, then Erik Karlsson is far and away ahead of everybody else on here. But if we're asking the question as a general manager, best all-around defenseman, that's where I think it gets kind of a little bit tough. And again, since 2017, we haven't seen Carlson at that same level. Doughty, is his game falling off? You could make an argument that it is, depending on the week, depending on the month. I still think he's solid. From 2015 through 2019, he was in every All-Star game. And I think as the Kings, I expect the Kings to get better next year. I think we'll see Doughty's numbers overall get back to where they should be. He's at a scary plus-minus at times, but he's playing a lot of minutes. He's playing a lot of minutes for a team that doesn't score. So that will tend to lead to a worse plus-minus. And if people want to say, well, Shannon's just making excuses for Doughty. Okay. All right. Now, again, the Doughty-Carlson conversation's always been there, and we haven't had Karlsson, Josi, and Pietrangelo in it a lot. But if you are a Caps fan, you know darn well John Karlsson's been getting screwed over for a while. So let's get into John Karlsson. 757 games played, 105 goals, 373 assists, 478 points. Much like Josi, he's getting better as he gets older. Some defensemen do. They get better as they get older. They play their best games in their 30s. Look at Zdeno Chara. Zdeno Chara, through the first however many years of his career, was okay or to good. And then he gets to Boston. That first year in Boston, he's And then after that, it's just absolutely fantastic. So Karlsson with his 478 points, he's ahead of Pietrangelo. He's ahead of Josi. He's behind Doughty, and he's behind Karlsson. If you get into points per game, he is far ahead of Doughty. But again, Doughty's not there to score the goals and the points as much as some of the other guys on the board. This season, Carlson, 69 games, 15 goals, 60 assists, 75 points. Through the first quarter of the season, it looked like he could hit 100 points. Now it looks like if we finish out the regular season, he'll probably end up with about 90, which is still excellent. And again, this is where the Norris Trophy gets frustrating. Karlsson and Josi have been amazing defensemen for a long time. They get into this conversation as being the best now because they're scoring at or above a point a game. And it is this again flaw that we see where just imagine if the Art Ross Trophy winner meant they were the Hart winner as well. You didn't have a Hart Trophy. You're just, all right, so that's... And sometimes it feels like with defensemen, that's where we're at. So 2018-2019, last season, he's fourth in Norris voting, which I thought was ridiculous. I thought he should have been at least top 3. And the year before, he was 5th. And Carlson has been putting up a ton of time. That being said, his average time on ice throughout his career is the lowest. 23 minutes and 22 seconds on average. But again, this year it looked like he was on his way to the Norris. And then when you look at the All-Star mentions, 2019 and 2020 are his first 2 All-Star games. So you're looking at guys that are trending in different directions. And again, when I do a mock draft and I have these 3 guys ahead of Erik Karlsson, it's not me saying Erik Karlsson's not fantastic. Erik Karlsson's been fantastic. It's me saying Karlsson's been underrated for a long time. He's finally getting his due. And I think over his career, he's been amazing. 2018 Stanley Cup to him as well. Josi has just been absolutely damn near perfect for years now. And the NHL's finally realizing it because he's putting up the goals. If his points totals are half, let's just say he has 35 points, 33 points this year, we're not hearing anything about the Norris Trophy. And yet, Roman Josi at half of his points is still just as useful. Doughty at 30 points is just as useful to me as Doughty at 60. And Carlson at half his points. And that's where with Erik Karlsson, so with John Carlson, they do rely on his points. With Erik Karlsson, a lot of that is going to be points right now. So, and again, I think with just one trophy for defensemen, it makes the entire conversation kind of ridiculous. Because again, with skaters in general, you have a lot of awards, but defense associated awards, there's just the one. Now, Alex Pietrangelo is not just on the board because I want to have Pietrangelo on the board. 758 games, which is 1 more than Carlson. 450 points, which is only 28 less than Carlson. And this is with Carlson this year outscoring him by 23 points. So over their careers coming into this year, these guys are darn near identical. 109 goals for Alex Pietrangelo, 105 for Carlson in his career, 109 for Josi. So Pietrangelo does put up goals, 341 assists, 450 points. 24 minutes and 38 seconds on average. So he's ahead of Carlson, and that's John Carlson. He's just below Josi, below Doughty, and below Erik Karlsson, who've been worked a lot. Is this where we mentioned the defensemen that have been worked a ton? Erik Karlsson and Drew Doughty are the ones that fans would say, well, they're wearing down. It's not really a coincidence. And I have a funny feeling that in the generation that's coming up, we'll see more importance put on resting defensemen, not playing them 26, 27 minutes a night, trying to have an even top 6. Keep things even. Think about it like in pitching, where they realized, hey, we're kind of working these pitchers into the ground. We might want to even this up a bit. We may very well see at some point general managers and coaches saying, we're working some of these defensemen into the ground. It'd be a smart idea to cut back their ice time in certain games and make sure that they're getting rested, because we want to make sure that they're just as effective throughout their entire careers. But that's a discussion for another time. Now this year, 16 goals, 36 assists, 52 points in 70 games for Pietrangelo. Pietrangelo has the same number of goals as Josi, 10 more than Erik Karlsson, and 1 more than John Carlson. I haven't heard Pietrangelo being talked about in Norris conversations, but he was 4th in Norris voting in 2012, and he was 5th in Norris voting in 2014. He does get noticed. This was a great draft. This draft was fantastic. All-Star games for Pietrangelo in 2018 and 2020. And so for St. Louis fans, one of the reasons that they get nervous about the idea of losing Pietrangelo is he seems to be trending on the upswing. he seems to be, as he gets older, becoming a better all-around defenseman. I don't put Pietrangelo necessarily in the same category as these guys over their entire careers, but he definitely has to be on this board. Has to be. And, I mentioned in the redraft that I was doing, if you had a defense that had these 5 guys, well, good luck keeping it under the cap. It's not going to happen. Carlson and Doughty alone, you're broken cap-wise. It's just done. But you can make an argument in doing a redraft, and I tried to, that Josi's fantastic. Josi's been underrated for a very, very long time. Roman Josi's been underrated league-wide. And it's easy, it seems, to become an underrated player playing for teams out of the South, whether it's Nashville, whether it's Carolina, Arizona, Florida. To some extent, Tampa, although they do get a lot of attention because they're the Lightning and, they do win a lot of games. But it feels like players on these teams, it's easier to underrate them. And then this year, Josi finally gets the points, and everybody loves him. I've loved Josi from the beginning. So I wanted to do this and explain this and have all 5 guys on the board because I think it's an interesting discussion to have. Because again, like I said when I was doing the redraft, you can argue, like with the second pile of defensemen there in the teens right into the early 20s, I say you can argue for almost any of these guys. I'm just telling you where I would take them. So yeah, if I'm going up in 2008, I got the podium in front of me and I'm like, all right, I've got these 5 guys. Okay, well, I'm taking Doughty. I know how tough he is, how many minutes he can play, and that he can do everything. So I'm taking Doughty. And then if Doughty's off the board, I'm going to take Roman Josi because I know what he is, I know what he can do. And it is not, to me, it's not an insult against Carlson. It's just me saying, hey, I think Josi's fantastic. Last year when I was talking about who I thought were the best defensemen in the league, I had Hedman at number 1, and I had Josi at number 2, and I've seen nothing this year in hockey to tell me that they shouldn't still be number 1 and 2, in my eyes. But again, there's obviously subjectivity in it, and so I always welcome these discussions when they take place on the channel. So thank you guys for keeping the discussion going. I have no problem with explaining. Like I've always said, I have no problem explaining my point of view and why I hold these 3 in such high regard and have them pretty darn close to one another. And yeah, John Carlson to me is trending in the right direction, and I think he's been underrated for a long time. If I'll close on this, the one complaint I've always had, and this is sports. It's not just in hockey, so I'm not going to say in the NHL. My one biggest complaint with sports as a sports fan has always been that there's so much adulation thrown at the superstars that even when a superstar isn't necessarily having a great year and somebody else is having a better year and you get to trophy voting, I'm not saying that's happened here, I'm just saying in sports in general, trophy voting, you'll see that trophy go to somebody and you go, wait, why'd he get it? Oh, because, he's the big star, and you're thinking, but he didn't have the best year this year. That guy did. And why? And I've seen it happen in football. I've seen it happen in basketball, baseball, any sport, where you'll see a guy win an award and you go, I can understand that last year, but why do you get it? Even for me, as a Patrice Bergeron Bruins fan, and Bergeron is Bergeron pennant right there. So, I'm saying straight out, I love Bergeron. He's my favorite Bruin. But there have been years where he's won the Selke, and I've thought, yeah, he had a great year. He was not the best defensive forward in the league. There was one year there that I felt it was Couturier, and I still to this day say Couturier was better that season than Bergeron. And I say that as a Bruins fan. And so it is subjective. And so when I look at this, and I always hear, well, so-and-so's had all these Vezinas, so he's the best goalie. How many did Jonathan Quick win? And yet Jonathan Quick's a pretty damn good goaltender. So, it is subjective, and I'd be interested to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Again, anytime I talk about Erik Karlsson, I know we're going to have these discussions. I welcome them because I think they're fun to have. And during this downtime, while it's getting sunny out and we don't know what's going to happen with hockey and what's going to happen with sports in general, it's fun to have this discussion. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. And I am a big fan of Erik Karlsson. And I'm going to say this in closing. I want him to bounce back when we get hockey back. I'm hoping he has taken a break. And that if there were any nagging injuries he wasn't talking about, because again, you don't talk about it as an athlete. I hope he comes back and he's back in this form that he was 3 years ago. And that we see that fantastic level of player that he's been before, because I know it's there. So there you go. Thanks again for all your support. It means a lot, and I will talk to you again soon.